You know, when I crossed 60, I realized something that took me more than half a lifetime to truly understand. Life isn't defined by the big events, it's shaped by how we think about the small ones. It's not the money in your bank account that makes you rich, it's the mindset in your mind that makes you free. I used to believe that if I just worked hard enough, everything would fall into place. I would wake up at 5, work until late at night, chasing projects, contracts, opportunities. And I thought I was doing the right thing. But one day, I looked around and realized I was so busy that I had stopped living. Have you ever felt that way? Like every day is just a copy of the one before work, exhaustion, repeat. An old friend of mine, Robert, once said, "Howard, you know, I spent my whole life earning money, but never had time to live with it." That line stayed with me for a long, long time. Because it wasn't just true for Robert, it was true for most of us. From that moment, I began observing people who were truly successful, not just wealthy, but peaceful inside. And I noticed they all had one thing in common. They see the world differently. They had what I call mindset shifts, those quiet transformations in thinking that no one teaches you in school and no one ever talks about. So today, I want to share with you 8 mindset shifts that changed how I live, how I see the world, and how I help others rediscover their inner strength. I'm not talking about some secret formula for getting rich, because the truth is, there isn't one. There are only people who are willing to look within, ask deeper questions, and have the courage to change. I want you to imagine this. It's morning. You're sitting in your kitchen, a warm cup of coffee in your hand. Sunlight filters through the window. You pick up your phone, and instantly the world rushes in news emails, deadlines, notifications, voices saying, "You have to, you must, you should." We call that living, but in truth, it's mostly reacting. I've met hundreds of people in my workshops, CEOs, engineers, teachers, and almost all of them said the same thing. "Howard, I feel like I'm living too fast. I don't even know what I'm running for anymore." And I told them, you don't need to run faster. You just need to think differently. Because every real change begins within with your mindset. So let's start with something simple. Your time is more valuable than you think. I had a student once, his name was James. He was a hardworking man, 10-hour days, no weekends off. When I asked him, "Are you happy?" he said, "I don't know. I just know I'm busy." And I said, "James, there are 2 kinds of busy people. Those who are busy avoiding life and those who are busy creating value. Which one are you?" He went quiet. A month later, he came back and said, "I've started reorganizing my time. I don't want to live just to pay bills." You see, how we think about time changes everything. Poor people work for survival. Rich people work to buy back their time. Poor people say, "I'll do it when I have time." Rich people say, "If it matters, I'll do it now." No one has 25 hours in a day, but some people live as if they have a lifetime to create, while others live as if they only have time to complain. Once you start to value your minutes, something amazing happens. The world doesn't change, you do. You become calmer, more focused, and suddenly opportunities begin to appear. Not because they're new, but because you finally have the clarity to see them. And then comes the second shift, turning problems into possibilities. I still remember my first business failure. It was brutal. My small company collapsed. I lost money, reputation, almost my belief in myself. But eventually I realized something profound. Failure isn't the end, it's a new lens. Instead of asking, "Why me?" I began asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" And from that question, everything began to rebuild stronger, clearer, more grounded. Here's what I've learned through all those years. Life doesn't owe you anything. It simply gives you challenges to test whether you have the patience to turn them into opportunities. In my years of coaching people over 50, I've seen something bittersweet. They have experience. They have wisdom. They even have the time. But they're afraid to start again. They think they're too old to learn something new, too late to try again, too far behind to reinvent themselves. But here's what I tell them. Age doesn't limit you. Your mindset does. One of my clients, a 62-year-old woman, once told me she was terrified to even click Create Account when she started her online business course. Her hands were literally shaking. But today, she teaches hundreds of women how to manage their finances. She told me, "Howard, I realized I never really got old. I just stopped learning too soon." And I smiled because that's true for all of us. You see, when I look back at my life, I've come to understand this. We don't grow old because of time. We grow old when we stop believing we can still change. That's why I believe wherever you are in life, whether you're 40, 50, or 60, if you're still willing to listen, to learn, to see things differently, then you're younger than you think. So in this video, we'll explore 8 powerful mindset shifts, ideas that can refresh your mind, help you live smarter, calmer, and richer, not just in your wallet, but in your heart. Because, as I often say, you don't need more time to live differently, you just need to think differently about time. In the next part, we'll dive into those 8 mindset shifts and how each one can forever change the way you see life. Because when you change your mindset, you change your life. 1. The first mindset. Time is the silent teacher. I once told a group of students, if you don't use your time intentionally, time will use you. Have you ever felt busy all day yet by nightfall, realized you didn't actually move forward? That's because you're living on someone else's schedule, not your own. A friend of mine, a retired engineer, once said to me, "Howard, I don't understand. When I was working, I always thought retirement would bring peace. But now every day feels meaningless." I asked him, "Do you still plan for tomorrow?" He laughed. "No, I don't think I need to anymore." And I said, "That's exactly why you feel lost." We never stop needing goals, they just change form. Time never stands still, but we can choose how it passes through us. Winners aren't those who have more hours, they're the ones who make time serve their purpose. 2. The second mindset. Discipline is stronger than inspiration. You know, I used to be addicted to motivation. I'd read self-help books, listen to podcasts, watch inspiring videos every morning, and I'd feel unstoppable until reality punched me in the face. Then I learned motivation gets you started, but discipline keeps you going. One of my former students, Linda, set her alarm for 5 a.m. to meditate and journal. She did it for 3 days and then she quit. When she asked me how to stay consistent, I told her, don't wait for inspiration. Create an environment that forces action. I shared with her a Stanford study showing that people who attach a new habit to an existing one, for example, meditating right after making coffee, are 3 times more likely to keep the habit. She tried it. 3 months later, she told me, now meditation is the moment I look forward to most each day. Motivation fades, discipline doesn't. Winners don't wait to feel ready, they start anyway. 3. The third mindset. Don't ask, what should I do? Ask, who do I want to become? After 30 years of working with people, I realized something most of us live by a to-do list, not by a to-be list. You probably wake up and ask, what do I have to get done today? But how often do you ask, who am I becoming through what I'm doing? When I restarted my career at 50, I stopped asking, how can I make more money, and started asking, what kind of person do I want to be in the second half of my life? Once I answered that, everything else, my habits, my goals, my work naturally fell into place. Ask yourself, are you living to complete tasks or to become the person you're meant to be? That answer will define the quality of every day you have left. 4. The fourth mindset. Failure doesn't defeat you. Quitting does. I once lost everything in a failed investment. I sat in my small house staring at bankruptcy papers thinking, this is it. I'm done. But then I remembered what my father used to say, son, when everything falls apart, don't ask why. Ask what's next. So I did. I learned. I rebuilt. I grew. 4 years later, I wasn't just back on my feet. I was stronger. What changed wasn't luck. It was mindset. Harvard research once found that people with a growth mindset don't see mistakes as evidence of limitation. They see them as data for improvement. So when you fall, don't ask, how bad am I? Ask, what can I learn from this? Winners aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who never stay down. 5. The fifth mindset. Emotions aren't the enemy. They're messengers. I used to try to control every emotion. When I was sad, I hid it. When I was afraid, I pretended to be strong. But over time, I realized something powerful. Emotions aren't something to escape. They're messages from your soul. A woman in one of my workshops once said, I'm scared of change. I'm scared of failing. And I told her, good. That fear means you're standing in front of something that matters. Emotions are data, not commands. You don't have to obey them, but you must listen to them. When you learn to understand your emotions, instead of being ruled by them, you begin to live with awareness. And that's where true peace begins, not when you have no fear, but when you can look fear in the eye and still move forward. 6. The sixth mindset. No one can save you but yourself. I know that sounds harsh, but it's the truth. We often wait for someone, a mentor, a partner, an opportunity to come and change our life. but no one can live for you. I remember a man named Carlos. He lost his job at 55, and for 6 months he just complained about how unfair life was. One day, I asked him, if no one comes to help you, what will you do? He was silent for a long moment, then said, I guess I'll have to start again. And I told him, then start today. 3 years later, he founded a small consulting company teaching young people leadership and management skills. He told me the day I stopped blaming others was the day I took back my power. You see, life is fair in a strange way. When you take 100% responsibility, you also regain 100% control. 7. The seventh mindset. Wealth is not what you have, it's what you feel. I once had dinner with a millionaire in California. He had everything: luxury cars, a big house, fame. But when I asked, are you happy, he looked away and said softly, I don't know. I just feel tired. Then I thought of a widowed woman I met in Texas. She lived in a small home, grew her own vegetables, and taught children in her town. She said, I'm not rich in money, but I'm rich in time, love, and peace. And I thought if I had to choose, I'd choose her kind of wealth. True wealth is the ability to find joy in the moment, no matter where you are or what you have. When you appreciate what you already have, you stop feeling poor, and when that happens, life begins to give you even more. 8. The eighth mindset. Every day is a chance to begin again. I know you might be hearing this after a long, exhausting day. Maybe you're wondering, is it too late for me to change? Let me tell you, it's never too late. I've seen 70-year-olds learn to play piano. I've seen 65-year-olds start writing their first book. And I'm the man who restarted his own career at 50 when everyone told me to slow down. Remember this. Every morning you open your eyes, you're given another chance to rewrite your story. No one can take that away from you unless you hand them the pen. And those are the 8 mindset shifts that changed my life. And I believe if you let them sink into your heart, they can change yours too. Not by turning you into someone else, but by bringing you back to yourself, a stronger, wiser, freer version of you. You know, when I was younger, I used to think life would change when I had more money, a better job, or when someone showed up and opened a door for me. But after more than 60 years of living through the ups and the downs, I realized something powerful. Life doesn't change when circumstances change. Life changes when you change. Everything begins with mindset. Mindset isn't something you pick up from a book or a few motivational videos. It's a way of being, the way you respond to every moment, every challenge, every bit of uncertainty life throws your way. I've met people who had nothing, yet their eyes were full of light. And I've met others who had everything, yet their souls felt empty. The difference wasn't in what they owned, but in how they thought about life. Once after a talk I gave, a 58-year-old woman came up to me. She said, Howard, I've spent my whole life taking care of my kids, my job, my family. Now they're grown and I don't even know who I am anymore. Can I start over? I looked into her eyes and said, not only can you start over, you must, because the moment you ask that question, it means your heart is still hungry to live. We often think starting over means throwing everything away, leaving the past behind, but it doesn't. Starting over means using what you've been through, the mistakes, the scars, the lessons to live more wisely today. If you've fallen, that doesn't make you weaker. It makes you deeper. If you've lost something, it doesn't steal your future. It reminds you what truly matters. I want you to imagine this for a moment. Tomorrow morning, you wake up, look in the mirror, and ask yourself, today, how would I live if I were already the person I want to become? Not the person others expect you to be, but the one you want to be. What would you do differently? What words would you choose? What would you give your time to? And what would you finally let go of? You see, changing your mindset isn't a single big moment. It's a series of small choices repeated day after day. You don't need to be perfect to begin. You just need to begin to become more of you. I once had a student named Mark. He worked in finance and lost his job at 52. He came to me with sad eyes and said, Howard, I think my life is over. I asked, what did you love doing before work took all your time? He paused for a long moment, then quietly said, I used to love painting. I said, then paint. He smiled bitterly. Howard, who would want a painting from a 52-year-old man just starting out? I replied, you would. 3 years later, I got a letter from Mark. Inside was a photo, his first painting ever sold. He wrote, I'm not making much money, but for the first time in years, I feel alive. That story reminded me, wealth isn't measured by your bank account, but by how peaceful your heart feels when you close your eyes at night. If you go to bed feeling calm and grateful, you're already rich. We live in a world that moves too fast. People chase achievements, count their money, compare their steps. But you don't need to be faster, you need to be truer. Success isn't getting ahead of others, it's walking in the right direction for you. And that direction always begins within. When you value time, you stop letting others waste it. When you build discipline, you no longer depend on fleeting motivation. When you treat failure as a lesson, you stop being afraid to try again. When you love yourself enough to take responsibility, you no longer wait for someone to save you. One day, you'll realize this truth. What you truly want isn't more, it's less, but more meaningful. Less empty conversations, less hidden fears, less excuses, and more quiet moments where you finally meet yourself again. I've seen people spend a lifetime chasing happiness, never realizing it's been standing right beside them, all along, in a loved one's smile in the morning air, in a warm cup of coffee, or in a sincere conversation like this one. Maybe happiness finds us when we stop running after it. If there's one thing I want you to remember from this video, it's this. Your life truly changes only when you change the way you think about it. Time is limited, but your ability to grow is endless. No one is born with the right mindset, but everyone can choose to build one. You can't control the wind, but you can always adjust your sails. And sometimes just a small turn of the hand can change the whole direction of your life. Before we end, I want you to do something. Place your hand on your heart and say slowly, I still have time. I still have a chance. I can still begin again. Say it, believe it, and live like it's true. Because it is true. And if you've stayed with me till now, maybe a part of you is ready to change, even just a little. So don't let that spark fade. Start today. Write down one thing you'll do differently tomorrow. Just one thing. And let that one step lead the way. Because every great revolution begins with one small act, and that act always begins with a new way of thinking. Thank you for spending this time with me. If something I said today touched you, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, because sometimes a single kind reminder can save a weary soul. And if you remember just one thing from all of this, let it be this: true wealth doesn't start in your wallet. It starts in your mind. When you change the way you think, you change the way you live. And when you change the way you live, you change your entire life. Life doesn't wait for anyone, but it always opens its arms to those who dare to begin again.